Before World War II, Manila was called the Pearl of the Orient. Guidebooks called it one of the most beautiful cities in Asia. It had grand boulevards designed by the same architect who planned the Chicago World's Fair, cathedrals from the 1500s, a government district that looked like a miniature Washington, D.C. It had an electric streetcar system, even Art Deco towers. If you've ever walked through Manila and wondered, where are all the old buildings? This is the answer. In February 1945, nearly all of it was destroyed in only 29 days. And almost nobody outside the Philippines knows this happened. This is what this video is about. Not just the battle, but what was lost, and why it changes how you understand this country today. Let's get into it. In 1904, the United States commissioned an architect named Daniel Burnham to redesign Manila. Burnham was already famous. He designed the 1893 Chicago World's Fair, the building that launched the City Beautiful movement in America. He'd helped shape the National Mall in Washington, D.C., and he designed Union Station in Washington and the Flatiron Building in New York. And the U.S. government brought him to Manila to do the same thing. He laid out wide boulevards, park and waterfront promenades along Manila Bay, neoclassical government buildings clustered around Luneta Park, also the Legislative Building and the Finance Building, the Agriculture Building, and Manila City Hall. If you put a photo of these buildings next to the National Mall, you'd see the resemblance immediately. And all of that was layered on top of centuries of Spanish colonial architecture. Intramuros, the walled city, was 160 acres of stone churches, plazas, and government buildings dating back to 1571. Manila Cathedral, St. Augustine Church, Fort Santiago. These had survived earthquakes and typhoons and 3 centuries of colonial history. Beyond the walls, the Escolta district was the commercial heart of the city. It had Art Deco buildings and theaters, banks. The Manila Hotel, where General MacArthur kept a penthouse, was considered one of the finest in Asia. And there was the Tranvia. This was an electric streetcar network running across the city since 1905. It had 170 streetcars at its peak, and one of the most extensive tram systems in East Asia at the time. This was a cosmopolitan city. Spanish, American, Chinese, and Filipino cultures laid on top of each other for centuries, sitting on one of the finest natural harbors in the Pacific. That was Manila before February 1945. To understand why it was destroyed, you need to understand one decision made by one man, Rear Admiral Sanji Iwabuchi. By early 1945, the Americans had landed on Luzon and were pushing toward Manila. General Yamashita, the Japanese commander in the Philippines, ordered a withdrawal. He wanted his forces to pull into the mountains and fight from there. Manila was supposed to be abandoned, but Iwabuchi refused. In November 1942, Iwabuchi had been captain of the battleship Hiroshima when it was sunk by the USS Washington off Guadalcanal. He survived. In Japanese military culture, surviving the loss of your ship was considered a profound disgrace. He was promoted to Rear Admiral, but assigned to a dead-end shore command, basically a desk job. For a man who had trained his whole career to fight at sea, it was an extended humiliation. When he was given command of naval forces in Manila, he saw his chance at redemption. He ordered his roughly 16,000 troops and naval personnel to fight to the death. He addressed his men and said, quote, "We are determined to fight to the last man." That decision by one officer seeking to restore his personal honor set in motion the destruction of an entire city. On February 3, 1945, American forces entered Manila from the north. The 1st Cavalry Division moved quickly. They liberated prisoners at Santo Tomas University, where thousands of civilians had been interned for 3 years. MacArthur declared Manila liberated on February 6. He was wrong. The battle had barely started. South of the Pasig River, Iwabuchi's forces had turned every major building into a fortress. They barricaded interiors with desks, bookcases, and sandbags. They tunneled between buildings through basements. They mined streets and intersections, and they placed snipers in the upper floors of the very government buildings that Burnham had designed. And they began systematically destroying the city themselves. Incendiary squads set fire to entire districts. They blew every bridge over the Pasig. MacArthur had banned airstrikes and restricted artillery use to protect civilians. But as Japanese resistance intensified, those restrictions were lifted. By February 9th, American artillery was firing into the city. The only way to dislodge the Japanese troops from fortified concrete buildings was to bring the buildings down. So they did, block by block, building by building, for 29 days. And what happened inside those buildings while the city was being shelled was even worse than the shelling itself. As Japanese forces realized they were going to die, they turned on the civilians. What followed became known as the Manila Massacre. An order circulated among Japanese troops. All people on the battlefield, with the exception of Japanese military personnel, will be put to death. And they carried it out. At La Concordia College, approximately 2,000 refugees were killed. At St. Paul College in Malate, over 600 were executed. At the Palacio del Gobernador in Intramuros, 142 Filipino and Spanish civilians were herded into concrete caves and killed with grenades. Women were assaulted, children were bayoneted, civilians were used as human shields. One survivor of Fort Santiago later testified that he was perhaps one of 50 who survived out of more than 3,000 men brought there. American war crimes investigators documented these atrocities across dozens of sites throughout the city. And when the battle finally reached Intramuros, the destruction was total. American howitzers blasted holes through walls that had stood since the 1500s. Japanese forces fought from the rubble of cathedrals. By the time it was over, Intramuros was virtually leveled. One of the only structures that survived was San Agustin Church, built in 1607. It still stands today. Almost everything around it, however, was gone. When the guns finally stopped on March 3, 1945, here's what the city looked like. 613 city blocks destroyed. More than 11,000 buildings flattened. 70% of the city's utilities gone. 75% of its factories gone. 80% of the southern residential district gone. 100% of the business district, you know it, gone. There was at least 100,000 Filipino civilians dead. Some estimates reach 240,000. Over 16,000 Japanese soldiers killed and just over 1,000 Americans dead. 200,000 people were left homeless. This is a complete nightmare scenario. A writer who survived the Santo Tomas internment camp described the city. He said, Manila had lost its piers, its bridges, its power plants, its factories, its schools, its churches, its theaters, its hotels. A great city, 1 million inhabitants, 300 years in the building, gone. A post-war investigation concluded that among Allied capitals, only Warsaw suffered more. Iwabuchi committed suicide in the final days of the battle. He received a posthumous promotion to vice admiral. General Yamashita was tried for war crimes and executed in February 1946, even though he had ordered Iwabuchi to evacuate. That legal precedent, holding a commander responsible for atrocities committed by subordinates, even without direct orders, became known as the Yamashita Standard, still applied in international law today. So why does this matter now? Well, for many reasons, but let me tell you one that might seem a little trite in light of everything that I just described and that went before, and especially in light of the atrocities that so many Filipinos experienced during this time. You see, every foreigner who comes to Manila notices the same thing. The city feels chaotic. It doesn't have the colonial architecture you see in other Asian capitals. Bangkok has temples, Singapore has Chinatown in the colonial district, Hanoi has the French Quarter. Manila, on the other hand, has almost nothing from before 1945. And the reason is that most of those other cities were not fought over the way Manila was. They surrendered. They declared open cities. They were occupied but not demolished. Manila was the exception. Manila was leveled. And after the war, Manila didn't rebuild what was lost. It couldn't. The Philippines was a newly independent country in 1946, devastated by war, trying to stand up a government, feed its people, and rebuild basic infrastructure. Preserving historical architecture was a luxury it could not afford. The ruins were bulldozed, new buildings went up in their place, the tranvia was abandoned because surplus American Jeeps were cheaper. Those Jeeps became jeepneys, the seat of government moved to Quezon City, and Manila became the city you see today. Dense, somewhat improvised, built on top of what was erased. So when people ask why Manila doesn't look like other great Asian cities, this is the answer. It's not poor planning. It's not a lack of culture or ambition. It's 29 days in February 1945 that the world largely forgot. In the story of World War II, the Battle of Manila is a footnote, overshadowed by D-Day. by Stalingrad, by the atomic bombs. Even in the Pacific Theater, Iwo Jima and Okinawa get more attention. But those were battles on islands with small civilian populations. Manila was a modern city of nearly 1 million people. 100 Filipinos died for every one American soldier in that battle, and most history books in the West barely mention it. In the Philippines, the memory is more alive. In 1995, 50 years after the battle, survivors and their descendants dedicated a memorial in Intramuros, the Memorare Manila 1945 monument. A hooded woman holding a dead child, an inscription by Nick Joaquin, one of the Philippines' greatest writers. It ends, quote, "We have never forgotten them, nor shall we ever forget." Most foreigners in Manila walk right past it. So here's what I think about when I walk through Manila now. Under the city, under the traffic and the concrete, there are layers of history that were physically removed. Cathedrals that stood for 3 centuries, government buildings that look like they belonged in Washington, an entire architectural identity, all gone in less than a month. And in its place, a city that had to improvise, had to rebuild without resources, without a plan, without the luxury of preservation. The Philippines has rebuilt itself many times. After colonization, after war, after disasters that would break most countries. And every time it comes back, but different. But it comes back. The Battle of Manila is not a comfortable story. There are no clean heroes. The Japanese committed atrocities against civilians. American artillery killed thousands of the very people it was trying to liberate. And the Filipinos, as always, were caught in between. But understanding what happened in those 29 days changes how you see the country. Or at least it should. It changes what you feel when you walk through Intramuros, when you see San Agustin Church standing alone among reconstructions. When you wonder why Manila looks the way it does, now you know. As always, guys, I appreciate you taking time to watch this video, and if there's anyone that you know that you believe would find this video meaningful, I would greatly appreciate you sharing. As always, guys, take care.